Good evening. So, you've heard a little bit about me. I'll just give you a bit more of my background. I've been involved in the field of emotional intelligence for the last 10 years or so. Until the last 2 years or so, it wasn't very widely known. Now it's becoming a bit of a buzzword that a lot of companies are beginning to use. And I'm going to talk a bit about what emotional intelligence is, because what it isn't is what most of you think it is. Most people, when they think of emotional intelligence, think of emotions and they think of therapy, they think of feelings. What I'm talking about is very practical things which can help you become more successful. I've been working for the last 10 years, mainly in the corporate market, but with individuals who come to me privately, not paid for by the companies, but paid individually to come and see me. And most of these have been businesswomen who've been at the top or very near the top of the companies. And the reason they came to see me was they'd become very successful, often quite quickly, but then they got stuck and they didn't know what to do next. And they find me usually through word of mouth. And I started working with them to make them either more successful in the company they were in, or to decide whether that was still something that they wanted to do. And if not, how to get out of that and still be successful. So to have the success without the price that they were paying. The price was quite often in terms of their family life, it was quite often in terms of their health, it was quite often in terms of their social life. So most successful people pay a price for that success. What I'm teaching people to do is to be successful without that price. And it is possible. There are many people out there who do that. Now, what does this have to do with property investment? Success, regardless of what field it's in, requires the same skills. Think of any successful sports person that's gone into business. Most of them became very successful in business as well, because all they did was apply the mindset of success that they had on the sports field to business. So what it requires to be successful in property is no different to what it requires to be successful in any type of business, in any type of endeavor. I don't know much about you as individuals. How many of you are full-time property investors? There's a few of you. How many of you are part-time property investors? And by part-time, I mean just doing it a few hours a week. Okay. And how many of you are property investors who have been property investors for less than 2 years? Okay. Like anything else, property investment goes through changes. Life changes, and the reason most people don't succeed is because they fail to keep up with the changes, and property investment has been going through quite a lot of change in the last year. The rules of the game have changed. Are you playing by the old rules still? Because I work with a guy called Sanjay Shah. Some of you might have heard of him. He was the person who put together Property Magic. He's pretty young for the level of success that he has. And in teaching that to the groups of people that he's been teaching it to, what he realized last year was a lot of people, when the credit crunch came, were still trying to play by the old rules, and he couldn't understand why they were doing that, because here he was teaching them how to do it successfully in the new game, in the new rules, but they still weren't adapting. And he knew me through a mastermind group that we both belonged to, and he started to speak about the philosophy of success, but more importantly, the mindset of success. And in that conversation, we both realized that what most of them were doing was still trying to live by the old rules. Not at the conscious level, because at the conscious level, they were trying to adapt. But we all have a subconscious. And that subconscious is far more powerful than the conscious, or the subconscious that can also be known as the unconscious. That part of the mind, that part of the body, is far more powerful than the conscious part. That part of your intelligence takes in far more information than the conscious mind can ever take in. Your conscious mind can ever only take in 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information in any moment. So that's between 5 and 9 bits of information. But the amount of information coming at us from 4 directions could be hundreds of bits of information. The unconscious takes it all in. And so those of you who are here and who know that you've got a positive attitude, are you getting the results that you deserve with that positive attitude? If you're not, I'd suggest it's because despite that positive attitude, which is at the conscious level, at the unconscious level, there's something else happening. And if you don't sort that out, that will sabotage all the success that you deserve. It really is as simple as that. That information is being processed in you. The successful people, whether they know it or not, start to apply that intelligence in a way in which it serves them. And most successful people that I've met, and to me, by successful, it's not just financially, it's across all the different areas in life. Whether they consciously learnt it or not, whether it was taught to them or not, applied emotional intelligence to most of their decisions. How many of you own the house that you live in? Okay, quite a lot of you. Go back to the time when you first purchased that property. How many of you made that decision on emotion, and how many of you made it on pure logic? Who made it on logic alone? A couple of hands. Who made it on emotion first and then justified that with logic? Look around. Why? Because that's how we make decisions. Contrary to all scientific facts out there, what science has realized is we actually make decisions primarily on emotion, and then the logic kicks in to justify that decision. So when it comes to property investment, how many of us are still trying to decide purely on logic? And I'm not saying that that doesn't work. That can work. But it takes a lot more effort to do that than to do something which is natural to you. So when you take that emotion out of that decision-making frame, you're actually cutting off most of your intelligence. You're relying on a small part of your intelligence. I had the fortune to speak to Aisha before you all arrived, and I started asking her some questions. And what came out was she actually makes decisions on a very intuitive basis. Intuition is in the body, it's not in the mind. Important decisions made from intuition are far more powerful than logical decisions. And I shared that I used to play around in the stock market about 10 to 15 years ago in that time frame. And I used to play on stock options, which I regarded as very risky. And I made a lot of money on stock options. And none of my decisions were based on logic. They were based entirely on intuition. I would look at the paper, I would look at the options which were for sale in the UK, which are hugely limited compared to the US. In the US, there's options on hundreds and hundreds of companies. In the UK, I think it was only about 100 companies at that time. And without any financial data whatsoever, I would choose what to buy or what to sell. And then, having made that decision, sometimes I would go back and look at the data. And I learned very quickly that having made the decision, if I didn't act within the next 5 minutes, the market had changed. And if I put an order to buy or sell, at that point, I lost money. But if I made that decision and acted instantly, within those 5 minutes or so, I was always right. And I learned that very quickly, and I stopped losing money and I made a lot of money. And then I got bored with it and I left it because it was too easy now. And also at that time I was playing with somebody else's money, which is much easier.